Hello, this is Pittsburgh Pat, and I'm here with Ryan Doyle from the Verdigris table. How are you?
I'm doing great this morning. How are you feeling?
I'm great. We had near TPK last night, so we'll just go right to it. And it was fun. So this is the danger of playing level one characters in D&D 5e, right?
Yes. We started something new. We've returned to 5e. I should say I'm running the Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, which is out of the Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which is a revamp of an old, I want to say it's second edition. It's from like an old, I think it was in Dragon magazine, but it's an old adventure, which means it's a little deadlier
Hmm.
than the Kid Gloves more modern stuff. And the
Right.
first encounter of the campaign it was very close to a wipe.
Yeah,
Very
so
close to a wipe.
basically there's four player characters, and you know, and they're basically, I know I had 9 health. I had 9 HP. I think Bertram's character had 9. Mike's character, I think, had 8. And I forget what Patrick's character had. And so there's another Patrick in the group. So yeah, so it was like, and we weren't all wizards. Like we were all like, like I was a rogue. My character was rogue, I should say. Um, you know,
Yeah, rogue
there was,
druid sorcerer
yeah,
who made it
yeah,
because he ran away.
yeah. The sorcerer stayed
And
back like he should have.
smart, yeah.
Okay, so
And the
spellcaster.
barbarian, yeah,
But the
maybe he was like
barbarian,
sitting on
the
11, 12 hit points. Yeah.
Yeah, the tank got killed. So yeah, it was pretty wild. I haven't rolled death saves in a long time, so that was pretty fun. And then we had to look up the mechanic for stabilization and right. And well, all we did was there was like a big house that's reputed to be haunted, and there's a well out in front. I'm like, well, let's check out the well. And then these two snakes pop out, and bam, that's it. So yeah, it was hilarious. Rolling so bad. I was rolling so badly last night. I had 4 different D20s, and if I had a dice jail, that 3 of them would have been in jail. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
the first roll of the game, you did a perception check walking over to the well, and it was like a 7 or an
mm,
8. It was
mhm,
pretty low,
mhm.
so you don't see the snakes who live there. And giant poisonous snakes punch way above their CR. CR is broken, and usually the other
Yeah,
way. But these guys, woo, it was like
yeah. So we talked about that,
3d6
right?
poison, I think,
Hmm.
on top of like it's like 1d4 plus one piercing. And then I'm pretty sure it's 3d6 poison if you fail, save
A
for
Constitution saving
half.
throw, right?
Um, and my first roll was a natural 20. And I should say, I don't use a dungeon master screen. I'm rolling in the open. So there's no, you can have all the conversations you want about fudging. Most of the time, a game master is going to fudge to save the players, not to screw the players. And that's not an option for me. There's a lot of options back there, but if the dice say 20 and I'm rolling the damage in the open too, yeah. So first strike of the game, player dropped to 0, having done 0 things so far.
That's right. So it's important, there's great lessons here. So there's great lessons as a dungeon master, the utility of a dungeon master screen if you're running
Hmm.
that way.
Hmm.
Totally up to the dungeon master, of course, to do whatever that, they want to, but that's definitely the screen gives you more options. And not a big problem for me because I invented this character, a couple hours before the game. So I'm not like beholden to it. For Mike, he had this backstory to his character. His character fell and was stabilized and resuscitated. But yeah, there's he's got this big backstory, which was also the epilogue to our um, old school rules
Hmm.
Dolmenwood campaign, which was beautiful. So Mike put out these like storyboards, and he didn't get a chance to animate it all together, but he told us the narrative as he showed us this PowerPoint presentation, basically, and it was beautiful. And he took the one of the protagonists from Winter's Daughter, I think was the module
Yep.
name, and she's called Snowfall at dusk, and he adopted her as his first level one character in this dimension. That's
Hmm.
how he kind of like reinvented her. And she's on a quest to seek vengeance and her crown and whatnot. And really great stuff, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
it
really great
was
stuff.
it was awesome, and it ties this campaign to the last campaign, like across systems and settings. Like it was masterfully done. And my first act of the campaign was to kill that character. I'm glad he survived.
Did he fall
Um,
first?
he got the crit.
Oh yeah, he got the
He got the
crit.
crit.
Yeah, that's funny.
Um, yeah, I think the first actually no, I think the first roll, I think your character got hit first and
Yeah,
dropped.
yeah,
And then I'm pretty sure the nat 20 was on Princess Snowfall at Dusk.
yeah.
And that dropped her. And then it was like, okay,
I
now
know it's low in
gonna
the
get
initiative
interesting.
order, but either way, it was interesting. So I go, from a player's point of view, I'll just tell you, like, from my point of view, I'm like, okay, I use fast character
Mm.
to generate characters because they'll do it. That program does everything. It gives you equipment and gold and backgrounds and all the kind of stuff that, yeah, if you want to sit there for an hour and do it, it's a lot of fun. But if you're like me and you're like, oh, darn, I need a first level character. Boom. Or if you're a dungeon master and you need an NPC, boom, it's done. It's like really fast and nice, hence fast character. And they're not endorsing me, but I just love them, so I'll shout out to them. And yeah, so so I'm thinking I'm gonna play a rogue because that's what we said last time. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna play a rogue. Now, do I want to be? I'm at level one, so I don't have to make this decision yet. But do I want my extra point to be in intelligence, or do I want it to be in charisma? Right. So am I going to be a swashbuckler rogue, and which would fit with Saltmarsh because you're by the ocean. You could have a pirate background, sailor background, etc. Or am I going to be a arcane trickster, which is kind of fun as a rogue because you get the best of both worlds, right? So you get to use magic, but you get to like dodgy dodge. So like you get sneak attack. So like it's super OP. My opinion, one of the top three subclasses in the PHB. So
It's
original PHB. Yeah,
it's fun.
yeah.
It's fun. Yeah, I think
A
it
lot of
puts up good
options.
numbers, especially at low to mid levels, right? Like other classes surpass it
Right.
at points where we're probably not playing anymore. Um,
Exactly. Most people stop playing after 12 is
yeah.
like the average, right?
But I'm partial to Arcane Tricksters because it is like the best of give me the sampler. It's like I can be involved in
Mhm.
any situation I want. I got skills. I got a little bit of magic.
Mhm.
I can be in melee. I can stand in the back and throw arrows at people.
Mhm.
Yeah, give me all
You
and
can
like
get out of there when you need to. So that's a good one. And then boom, done. So and the great thing is I'm thinking of this backstory while we're playing because I haven't had a ton of time to think of it. And the character class, I'm sorry, the species that was picked for me was a shapeshifter, and I had never played a shapeshifter before. So that's why I
mm,
didn't say anything when we were introducing characters. I'm like,
you were being the cagey rogue. I was like,
I'm
all
like
right, let's see where this
I
goes.
look human, but
Yeah, yeah.
but that's not. I was going to go into this whole thing about like almost like that Jock Ken from like Game of Thrones kind of thing, where like as this, if I was going to play the duelist or I was going to play the swashbuckler,
Mm,
as he's fighting, as he's compelling a duel, he takes on the visage of the person he's fighting, and then that's a tactic to like psych out the person that he's up against. And then at some point it may cause confusion, which is fun, for the rest of the player characters, like which one's, the old Spider-Man thing
hmm.
meme. So which one's which? So so I was gonna go with something like that and start playing with that all out the window. So now
You
I'm
literally tore the sheet in half, which I was like,
I
yes, I haven't
did
seen that in a
actually,
long
yeah.
time.
Yeah. I literally did. I tore both those sheets. So there's my character sheet in half. And then later I'm piecing it together because we find the body and I'm trying to pick up my gear off of the other one. Like I'm gonna make the best out of a bad situation, right?
That's a good way to start with twice as much gear and gold.
That's what I thought. I didn't see why there was anything wrong with that. Uh, but Bertram's character who survived the sorcerer, he was afraid of the snake. Now he's going to have that as a meme or as a theme in his character. So he's going to be like, traumatized by that event, seeing his buddies go down. So he didn't want to go anywhere near it. And I'm like, nah, I'm sniping this thing. I see it swallowing a human body or a corpse, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna shoot this thing. So plus as a player, I want my gear. So
And revenge.
and revenge a little bit. Yeah, that wasn't that strong. But then I got the so I'm going through and I'm not getting anything. I got another barbarian there. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Blah blah blah. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. So I ended up with a turtle.
Mm.
And I've played turtles as NPCs before, but I've never played one as a player character. So I thought that would be interesting. And it's what I really found interesting, not even so much of his class ended up being a ranger, which I thought was weird, but you know, you can work with that. But his background is a gladiator, and I thought, well, that's pretty interesting, right? Because you've got your shield on your back, right?
Hmm.
So like, you know, and I'm thinking like, okay, how can I manipulate this racial feature, I guess is what you would call it, character feature. So so I'm going to do that. So what we did was, and it came in handy a couple times, right?
Yeah.
So at one point we go come up against a swarm of spiders. We open a door and there's a room with a bunch of cobweb, or I mean spider webs in it, and the sorcerer's like, oh, I have prestidigitation.
I have a cantrip for this.
So he comes up and says, I'll just clean the room. And of course, now the spiders have no home, so they attack, right? And
Yeah.
it's like,
After being cautious for like a good 45 minutes of real time, he
so
rushed into that room.
funny. So funny. Yeah, so cautious that he's like on the exterior of the building, like his character's up against the wall, so nothing can get behind him. And I'm thinking, we'll just have the snake drop from the
Uh,
other, you know, the roof. But yeah, so that was fun. But anyway, so we're fighting the spiders, and eventually they crawl onto me. I have the highest hit class, so I'm kind of like being the tank. And then I drop to the floor and just kind of roll around, try to squish them. So that was an interesting mechanic, I thought, you know. It was
yeah, there
kind
was
of
a
cool.
lot of improvisation. So I should say this was an unusual start to a campaign in that we hit the ground running. We came to a natural conclusion last week. A player was missing, had been on vacation for a couple of weeks, so somebody was like coming to sit in. So we didn't really have like a lot of conversation, session zero, whatever. And we're not quite sure what's happening in 5, 6 weeks when the new PHB comes out. Are we
Right.
going to continue on with these characters? Are we going to make new characters? Are we going to, we have characters that are kind of on pause at level 5 at the end of Lost Mine of Fandelver. Are we going to transition into Shattered Obelisk? That seems to be the way the group is leaning. So I didn't want to invest hours, plural, potentially into character creation and how do you know each other. Like I'm not besmirching that at all, but for this particular case, it was like, all
Right.
right, I didn't even put you guys in town. I was like, you are 2 miles from town. You're already on the adventure. We're gonna hit the ground running today. And then everybody
Well, the
died.
funny thing is, from Patrick's point of view, from the other Patrick's point of view,
Mhm.
at one point he even said, like, "Oh, another haunted house," because the last time he played, we were playing a module which was like a kind of a one shot where this giant steals bell, and there's this what was the name of the manor?
The Waking of Willoughby
The
Hall,
Waking of Willoughby Hall,
which
and
is which
yeah,
to in my perspective, in my context, is very long ago because
right,
you
because
know a game
you've DM,
session
yeah.
it fills up so much like mental space band, like you go through so much time in a compressed manner that like I
And
don't
you
know.
DM several times a week, so
There's
right?
I mean there's also that. I got
So
a lot going
you're
on.
so you personally have like
Yeah,
so for you in game time, it's a lot of hours.
yeah,
For you know, but even as a player, like we're like, oh yeah, there's a lot of we're like at one point we're like, yeah, nothing happened between the two. But that's all we do every week is a haunted house, blah blah blah. Meanwhile, we rescued princess and we you know fought a shapeshift doppelganger that killed another one where my character died, but then came back. That one came back. That was it. Yeah. So like, you know, it was cool. It was it's interesting to see from the different players' perspectives, you know, what's going on, what they're looking at. You know,
and
that's really fun.
that's something that the dungeon like being a dungeon master teaches you.
Yeah.
is that it's not like we're sharing a thing. There's like one thing happening at the table, but there's at least as many people at the table are having separate experiences. Expecting different things, seeing different things, responding to different things. That's why I like on the channel, I advocate variety a lot because, maybe you form the perfect amalgam of your tribe of like everybody wants the same thing out of the game, but they're going to be playing different characters with different skills. So yeah, I like here's the sampler. Different characters are going to respond to different things. Different players are going to respond to different things.
It reminds me, I mean, this is something that we talk about, I talk about teaching D&D to
hmm,
kids. And one of the things you can teach is, there's so many things you can teach, but one of them is the ability of kids, especially at a younger age, in like primary school, to be, and even in middle school, to be able to put themselves in somebody else's shoes. So number one, you're doing that as the character. So a lot of times people are playing their meta gaming, just that's the way you come into D&D. If you're just playing your character the way you would be if you were that character. And
yep.
then there comes a division, and sometimes you're playing as yourself, figuring it out. And I still do this as a player too. But then other times you're playing, oh, well, I know the answer to this puzzle, but my character might not know the answer to this puzzle. Therefore, we'll play it as if my character doesn't know it. We'll play the character's point of view. But then the really magic part, another magical part of it is when the kids are able to understand that there are other people at the table and they're having a separate experience. They're having a shared experience, but they're also, it's like, and then every once in a while, a kid will be like, because in any group, somebody won't talk for a little bit. And then at some point, the rest of the group, occasionally, especially with, younger boys who seem to be like, they're very much in their head, like their space. This is what I'm doing. But every once in a while, I want to look over and be like, well, what about Brian? What about Brian? What's Brian want to do? And then it's like, whoa, consideration, just like being able to like see that there are other people at the table, that sort of thing. I remember being a bartender and talking to a guy over the bar, and we are talking about the Battle of Marathon. And this guy had just watched a History Channel thing about it. And he's talking about his this is what happened. And I was talking about like, well, okay, you've got Thucydides writing about this, and you're like, was Thucydides there? And it was, even if he were there at the battle, he's only going to be able to see, and especially in hoplite warfare, if you're in hoplite warfare, you've got a mask on, you can see like basically like a horse sees with blinders, right? You can't see the whole, you're not flying a drone above, looking at the battle formations, listening to the generals issue their orders. It's not a video game, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like, even if you have an eyewitness to the event, they're going to have one perspective, one
and and biases,
very.
especially if you're talking about a battle. Like they have a certain perspective they're bringing to things, to put it as neutrally as possible.
Sure, their
And now
side must win, right? And
historical
and I must
recounting of a
survive.
battle is going to be from a particular set of there might be an agenda behind
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. You might want to paint the Persians in a cowardly light, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so yeah, but this guy banged on the bar top, and he said, "No, this is history." And I was like, "Whoa, wow!" Like, I mean, I was amazed. That was an impressive moment for me. I was like, "Wow." It's some people can solidify their idea of a certain situation so they can gel it to such a point where they think that that is an absolute fact. And it's like, human experience is not absolute, in a
and it
collective sense,
and
you know?
it goes beyond the drunk guy at the bar, or the guy who's half in the bag, and let's be magnanimous about it. And it goes
Right.
beyond like eighth grade boys. Like there is definitely an empathy deficit going on, at least in this country right now, and it's just like a seeking solace in the fact that you know everything and are right and are correct and don't have to examine any thoughts or beliefs because your team is winning because
It
your
makes
team is
it
the right team.
it
And
makes
like,
it easier. It's an
yeah,
easier
I mean,
worldview. There's no doubt. If you have a worldview where you're like, okay, this is going to happen when I die, and then all you got to do is do this, and this is, and
yeah,
then if I go to work and I play by the rules, everything's going to be fine, blah blah blah, and that's all, and that's all good, and I think that's a great base. It's nice to have a base, but
there
but
are days where I wish I could live
yeah,
like that, just be
right.
like absolute certainty and zero doubt. And yeah,
But the older I get, the more the more gray the world becomes, and the more permutations there are in my own experience. And even now, as I gain more years, and I can look back and see how my memory is flawed. So
oh
I
God, yeah.
remember things the way I want to remember them. And I have a
Mhm.
good friend, he always says, like, if there's a car accident and you ask, five people what happened, oh, the car was blue, no, the driver was green, no, it was a UFO, no, Bigfoot stepped out of the woods. Like, it's wherever that person is coming from. They're bringing that to that memory, whatever their background is. So it's the same with Dungeons and Dragons, and that's what my point is. It's like, it's cool now that I've played games with these guys for a couple months now. So now I can sort of get a perspective on where they're coming from, and you
Mhm.
learn a lot. And I think that's why another thing that's great about gaming is that you I'm going to use the word intimate, but I mean it in a small,
Yeah, no, for
sense.
the
But like
you have shared experiences.
you
Yeah.
learn intimate details about people that you may not otherwise in a normal casual conversation learn. You see the way,
Like
yeah,
absolutely. If that was the first time we had sat down, even if that was the first time I met the one person who's like the newest at the table, that was his first experience with me as the dungeon master, I would have put my thumb on the scales much more. I don't know exactly what I would have done, but you've always got moves as the DM. Like I would have sculpted that experience in a different way instead of letting things play out. And I could do that because we had the trust and experience built already at the table.
right,
And I hope everybody understands, like, I'm not the antagonistic dungeon master who's just there to stomp your characters. And the idea that, like, okay, now here's another experience that we're sharing. Like, this is not what I had planned. This is not what I wanted. Part of my brain is going like, oh no, this is bad. TPK, the first the first time you roll initiative in a new campaign, not good. People, you talk about stuff on the internet, people are going to yell at you in the comments.
yeah,
But hey, this is like this is a new one. This is new for me. Let's see where this
but
goes. Let's see
but
what
he
happens after this. And like, you guys want to bring the same characters back? Like, sure, it's a game. We can talk. Like, it's fine.
Right.
We'll
But
figure it
even
out
at
from
the
here.
table, it wasn't, I didn't have any negative feelings. I thought, I mean, this is the type of thing where when I came home, my wife's like, hi, how'd it go? And I was like, we got killed. And
Everybody
you know what I
died
mean? But
immediately. Yeah.
it's like Rogue One, everybody dies. But without the heroic sacrifice, we just died. And then it's like those are the type of things you remember, right? You don't
Yes.
always remember when you save the fairy princess, but you do remember when something happens that's out of the ordinary. So this is going to be a long time memory, and I said, to her as well, like at least it happened at the beginning when I wasn't fully invested emotionally with this character.
And it created, like, the party composition changed immediately, and like we're gonna have a very different experience here on out because now there's a turtle ranger who's like half of a ninja turtle gladiator running around doing like improvised actions, and now there's an artificer. There was a pretty classic like Goliath
Yeah,
barbarian, and now there's, yeah, I don't know if we're gonna have a mechanical spider or Tony Stark or
yeah,
guns. Who knows? But like things are gonna be different from here on out because that happened.
that's pretty cool.
And then like just yeah, I love throwing that dash of randomization in there. And what on paper would have been a very boring encounter. Like we would not spend 30 minutes, I don't even know how long, talking about that this morning. Like we would not,
Right.
that would not be the focus of this conversation. The
Nope.
two snakes that crawled out of a well is pretty boring. I wouldn't like write that. I would add more to that if I were making that adventure. That's not
Hmm.
enough. But well, the dice said, okay, this is interesting.
That's right.
And
And
here
and
we are.
that's the thing. And that's, you if you over prep and you try to railroad your players, you may miss out on all these spontaneous things that they're going to make happen, no matter what you present, no matter what you present. So like, the classic thing happens probably because as a reaction to those initial characters dying is once we get in the house, everybody's being careful about every single door, the classic tiptoe through the dungeon mechanic, and we're looking under doors. So that becomes like a mechanic for us. So like we're looking under doors. So at one point, my character breaks a mirror and tries to invent some kind of like under the vehicle, like border inspection like device in order to look under doors with, and you give them advantage for that. And then so I was doing that kind of as a joke, like a lampoon, but I'm also like looking at my character sheet and I'm a level 1 and I got nothing.
Right.
I got nothing. So improvised stuff is way more fun at that level. So like, let's improvise. I got nothing that's any deadlier than an improvised, much deadlier than an improvised weapon anyway. So let's do that. And the mechanic of like running and falling on the ground into the shell and then rolling, I want to like do something with that eventually. And as a result, I told my wife, I think I'm going to name my character Brunswick. So like a bowling ball.
Nice. Nice. I like it.
So, but
Yeah,
anyway,
I
yeah,
I like low level. So like the old school feel, right? Like came through. Like you only that like whatever first edition, second edition, basic vibes of like 80s D&D, you really only feel for like a level maybe two
right.
in fifth edition. And these limits breed creative solutions to problems. You have a torch, and that's important. And by level three, I have a light cantrip, and
Yeah,
everyone has
somebody
dark
casts
vision, and
light
like
on
nobody
something,
cares.
it's not a big deal.
But like I'm walking around with a torch, here's some spiders. Now these spiders are on fire. Don't roll the one because other things might go on fire too.
Yeah, what else would
Um,
you do? I mean, like if you're like, an adventurer, like, that's what I was saying. Like, am I going to shoot my longbow at these things and try to get lucky and hit one? It's a swarm.
right.
So, or am I going to like, s- try to use something that has more of an area of an effect, right, on them? Maybe they scatter, maybe you get a couple of them with the torch. But yeah, it makes for when you don't have as much, you have to, it promotes creativity, right?
Yep. Yep.
Right. If you're carrying like 15 weapons with you, then you have the right tool for the right job. You just pull that out, you take care of the threat and you're on your way. That's a different kind of game. So
And
pulling things
there's
out of the environment, using things that are like part of the furniture, literally taking apart the furniture. That's what you would do if you were in a survival situation, right?
it's immersive in a way that it's harder to put yourself in the shoes of this like super heroic magic user with even like third level spells, let alone fifth level spells. But the guy with 8 hit points who just watched his buddy get bit in the neck by a snake and die is like, oh, okay, like that's easier to feel, at least for me. And there's something to be said. It's almost like the same function you get out of like a level zero funnel sort of thing, but like I've definitely considered like I always tell people like have a backup character because I like to put the fear into players. I don't set out to kill them in the first fight, but like it set the tone. It's a
It can
whole different. It
happen.
feels like an adventure now, and like we
It
let it
re
happen, and
it really
now
does. It really does.
you know
You're
you
in a remote location. There's no first aid. There's no going back to town to like heal up for a night and then come back. Like none of that mechanic is there. So that's it's a great way to start a campaign. So far I like Ghosts of Saltmarsh for that reason. I like the way you said it at the start instead of starting it in town, starting it
mm,
um, in media res, I guess would be like
yeah.
right there in the middle of the action. So yeah. And then to flash forward for what which is only like 6, 7 weeks away, when the new player's handbook comes out for D&D, what we're calling 5.5, we talking about level 1. So I guess at level 2, all of the character classes are going to have subclass choices. Is that right?
Three.
I
They all
said
it all comes
3.
online
It's
at
all
three
at
now.
3. So that's going to be another way that like how many people do you think are just going to skip ahead and start at 3, right?
I would say most. And I think it's a shame. I think you miss something. It's a it's a limited perspective, right? I understand the impulse to be powerful and win the game, but like you're leaving something on the table by not experiencing D&D at a level where a shard of a mirror on a stick is valuable and a one hit point makes a difference. Like that game is much more the visceral and fun, you know.
Right.
And then when you hit level 3 and your subclass comes online, you have earned those abilities. You remember what it's like before you could do all this cool shit, and now the cool shit feels cool instead of just like, man, that's the default. Now it's an achievement.
That's right. And you've grown up with the character. So for me,
Mm.
like, having not thought about this character for a week and having thought about it now for several hours and playing the character through some situations, for me, this is how I play a lot of characters. This informs me on how this character it has its own history now. So instead of me like saying, okay, I'm going to be a lampoon of Errol Flynn in, um, Captain Blood or well, I can't remember what that. Anyway, so I'm going to be Robin Hood. It's this character now has its own kind of thing. Like I did the thing with the break dancing. That's obviously the
Hmm.
Ninja Turtle thing. Everybody's going to do that. I mean, for of a certain generation, you're going to do that. But then this idea of like running and then rolling, like Mario, like the turtle in Mario or something. That can actually end up being like something that changes which subclass you end up picking when you get to that point, right?
Yes.
So are you going to take a feat now where you're which accentuates that ability, or are you going to be are you going to end up being a grappler? Are you going to tackle somebody and then like roll with them, or like a crocodile, like a death roll kind of thing? There's all kinds of things that could be informed by levels 1 and 2 before you get to pick this subclass. You know, so
And it's so much more interesting to discover those things through play. And everyone's bought in. Everybody understands. Like the dungeon masters maybe got to read your backstory. The other players are not. I'm sorry. May it depends. Your mileage may vary, but like think about how often you've read the other players' backstories. You don't get the same level of buy-in as when like, oh no, I was there, I saw it. Like it makes sense that your character's afraid of this freaking well because 20 minutes ago his friend died because of it,
exactly.
and now he's acting out on those fears, and we're all on the same page. Opposed to you showing up with a character that's afraid, it's like, it doesn't hit the same.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah. All right. Well, good recap, I think. There's a lot of stuff for people to take away from this. And yeah, great session. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm glad because yeah, you're not always sure. It's like, well, all right, everyone's dead and rolling up new characters. Let's see how everybody feels in a couple minutes.
For
I'm gonna
me,
get a drink.
yeah, it was the novelty of it, like
Yes.
it's fun. And I highly like I'm gonna plug the store a little bit. So Game Masters in Pittsburgh, GameMastersPGH.com. Um, so I'll be running a 5E Adventure League this Saturday. And I'm not doing it so people will like watch this come out, but what I'm doing is I'm just saying like that's part of the fun of Adventure League is investigating these one session like things where you can like play with characters. And so if you're newer to the game, and especially when 5.5 comes out, there's going to be this opportunity, hopefully, where you're going to be able like, well, what's it like to be a bard? Well, I never played a druid. Well, what about like, what if I like multi-class? Is that even going to work? Is a rogue barbarian going to work? Is that a thing? Is a sorcerer, is there any advantage to being a sorcerer wizard, or should I just go straight wizard? Like, and you can do that without having invested, months and months and months of time. You can experiment with it in a gameplay environment, which I think is going to be very useful, especially for experimenting with new
I think a lot of
mechanics.
people overestimate the energy that goes into character creation because you can put in a ton of energy, but it's not required. So realizing that characters are disposable and changeable grants you a lot of freedom.
And the
And
great
I
thing
could,
is, if you're a DM, you can always use one of these characters and then PC later,
yeah,
because you've invested enough mental thought into it that they're more three-dimensional than just like taking a random like card, and saying like, oh, okay, here's, strength 12, charisma 18, that kind of thing. So it's pretty cool.
yeah. Don't be afraid of TPKs, ladies and gentlemen, especially first thing. That's today's message, I guess. I don't know.
Hopefully, don't be afraid of ghosts either. We're gonna
Roll with it. Oh
hopefully
yeah, yeah.
we're gonna meet some ghosts hopefully in this haunted house. All right, Ryan, always great, and looking forward to next week already. And I'll see you on the next one.
All right,
Everybody
thanks,
out
Pat.
there, peace.
Appreciate it.